Welcome back. The House Appropriations Committee approving the $1.1 trillion defense spending package for fiscal year 2027 in a party line vote 34-27. The package includes more than $7 billion for hypersonic weapons and more than $397 million for the Golden Dome missile defense system. AI and drone warfare has been reshaping defense spending and battlefield strategy for sure. One early-stage venture capital firm, Harpoon Ventures, is investing in founders building across AI, deep tech, software infrastructure, and cybersecurity. The focus on restoring and maintaining American tech leadership, plus our strategic advantage as we face this new age of warfare. Joining me now is the founder and managing partner of Harpoon Ventures. Larsen Jensen is with us this morning. Larsen, great to have you this morning.
Thanks for having me, Maria. It's great to be here.
Congratulations. I just love what you're doing in terms of investing in the very things that this country needs to stay competitive. How did you come up with this? This is your fourth fund that you're closing right now?
It is. I really appreciate having me on. This is our fourth venture capital fund. So we invest in early stage technology founders who are building technologies in the national interest of our country and our allies. We've been doing it since 2018. I came to this with admittedly a little bit of a bias. I was previously an Olympic swimmer, a two-time Team USA member, and then went on to serve our country as a Navy SEAL. And now I'm serving our country in a new way, on the investment battlefield, if you will, where we're trying to invest in American technology to counter China.
Wow, unbelievable. Thank you so much for your service to this great nation. A Navy SEAL, you've seen so much. What did that experience help you with in terms of informing you to what the country really needs to stay competitive in terms of national security?
Maria, it helped in so many ways. I saw firsthand how the enemy would adapt, and so would we, with new technology that would come onto the battlefield. Back when I was in the military, we were confronting improvised explosive devices, IEDs, on the battlefield in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now we effectively have these things that are flying IEDs. I think we've witnessed what will go down in history as Drone War I in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where they're manufacturing over 100,000 of these things on both sides of the conflict every single month. Almost 1 million drones per year being produced out of those regions. And fortunately, under President Trump's leadership and Secretary Hegseth's leadership, we have new programs to bring that technology to the United States to make sure we can deter and win potential conflicts in the future.
Yeah, we've been digging in on President Trump's agenda from day one, and part of that has been this investment in drone capability. The president wants mass production. Tell us if you think the industry can do that. Can they scale up to actually produce these things faster and helping the U.S. in terms of its own national security ambitions?
Well, it's going to take some time, Maria. For a long time, we've offshored this capability like we did so many other technologies to China, where they have amassed a tremendous dominance over the United States over the past 20 years, where we've been asleep at the wheel, unfortunately. Now, under President Trump's leadership, we're bringing that back to the United States. It's not only the platforms themselves, it's the subcomponents that we need to invest in. We do invest in the battery capability, the motor capability, the microelectronics, all of these technologies that go into these drone platforms of the future. We need to onshore back to the United States to make sure that we have sovereign capability ourselves.
Well, this is a very good list that you raised. Private capital is increasingly moving toward companies that are building technologies tied to national security, the industrial resilience and long-term U.S. competitiveness. Let me get your take on what we're still reliant on China for, because, you know, these rare earths go into all of that, and the CCP is trying to bully the U.S. and the world in terms of releasing those refined rare earth minerals.
Unfortunately, they are. And I think that's something that entrepreneurs and venture capitalists like us can do our part to serve our nation by investing in bleeding-edge technologies that reduce our dependence on China. We've invested in companies that reduce our dependence on rare earths, including lithium coming out of China, through modern technology where we can actually process that rare earth element in the United States with zero reliance on China at a fraction of the price. They typically beat us not only in terms of production, but on price, given the subsidies that they put into place in China. And I think through advanced technologies that in our entrepreneurship ecosystem in the United States, we can overtake China in areas such as rare earths and a variety of others as well.
So today you're announcing the final close of the Harpoon Ventures fourth round of funding. Your firm has more than $450 million, is that right? In
yes,
total assets under management across these four funds. Tell us about all four funds and what the specific focuses are.
Sure. Early in our fund franchise, when we raised our first fund in 2018, we're investing in primarily dual-use technologies that maybe started selling into the enterprise first, but ultimately could be transcend into government markets. Nowadays, we're doing that as well, but also have a conscientious effort towards pure-play defense technologies and technologies that would sell to the United States federal government as their sole and exclusive customer. We think the imperative is so drastic that the United States needs to win this AI race, this space race, this nuclear renaissance, all of which are undergoing a huge inflection right now at this point in time, and those are the areas that we're putting our capital behind.
Well, you launched the Black Flag investor list, a database collecting U.S. technology founders with venture capital and allied investors who prioritize national interests. That was a great list.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And because we know that it's not just going to be Harpoon. It's going to be a variety of other investors, entrepreneurs, and it's going to take a whole of nation approach to really deter potential adversaries in the future and to invest in this new reindustrialization renaissance that's going on right now. And so we think it's important to bring others into the fray and to all collaborate to work together to make sure that we have a more prosperous future, especially as we approach our 250th birthday coming up here in a few days.
Absolutely, and we're also proud of that, as the fact that the U.S. is the superpower militarily and economically. What do you need to see for these companies to have a clear path to move forward in terms of policy, permitting? I mean, the president has done everything he can with regard to executive orders, but doesn't some of this stuff in terms of permitting have to be codified at this point by Congress?
It does. I mean, all of this, in order for it to endure, the Trump administration needs to be codified into law, through Congress. And so that's ultimately what we want to see. But the Trump administration has done a fantastic job, whether it be EOs on drone dominance, EOs on nuclear energy. One of our portfolio companies was just cleared hot to turn on its reactor by Secretary Wright a couple days ago, and it's going to be one of 3 reactors to go online before our 250th birthday. So there's lots of things that have actually made a huge amount of difference, especially as compared to the last administration.
Well, it's a good point because the president has put all hands on deck when it comes to energy. So we've gone from this AI race to a power race, and nuclear is a big part of that. So in terms of investing and finding investments that are critical to this whole initiative, I mean, you're trying to strengthen U.S. tech leadership and compete with China in these critical industries. What do we need to actually do that?
We need everything throughout the entire AI stack and national security stack. We're at a unique point in time where not only is our armament depleted by virtue of our conflicts that we've engaged in around the world, but also there's a tech inflection led by AI. So we need to bring on new power, new reactors, all forms of power to power the data centers of the future. We need next generation chips, which we've invested in as well, to go into those data centers of the future. We need new unique models to make sure that the United States can accomplish everything that we need to do, not only large language models, but physics-based models to ensure that we can create the products and services of the future to maintain our national dominance.
And what are your thoughts on the Anthropic Mythos model and whether or not we are actually seeing breaks in that, or I mean, you've got China now trying to mimic Anthropic.
Absolutely.
Right. So I mean, these are worrisome times.
Yeah, this is something that China's done for a very long time. Rely on American innovation, rip it off, copycat it, and release it and undercut the United States. So I definitely think it's an item of concern, and I can't say that everybody in the industry has handled it quite well. But this is something I think we are not only on the verge of a breakthrough, we've already had a breakthrough in AI, and we see no signs in the model performance slowing down, not only across OpenAI, Anthropic, and other model providers. We think the open source community is going to continue to thrive and be much a bigger part of the ecosystem in the United States. But it's really important that we get our data centers online, our power online, because I, for one, don't want to lose to China. I'm a pretty competitive guy. I didn't want to lose to China in the swimming pool, and I certainly don't want to lose economically or militarily.
And you didn't want to lose on the military field either. And,
exactly.
And that's what I want to ask you, because when you're looking at growth, you're in a different role right now, from your past roles. You're looking to identify the companies that will grow the economy and field a specific point in terms of beating China and excelling on the battlefield. Where do you see growth in terms of the military and what you're investing in?
There's growth in a variety of different areas, whether it be hypersonics through the NDAA, shipbuilding. We need to improve our fleet capability. We have been overmatched by China in terms of ship production, and we're finally getting our act together with regard to that. And we've invested in companies to do just that, both in hypersonics, shipbuilding, energy, semiconductors, the whole gamut. I think there's a huge opportunity right now and a huge market unlock as well, which is a unique time for investors like us to not only invest in these things and do well financially for our investors, but also to support our country at the same time.
What about the Golden Dome? Where are the investment ideas around the Golden Dome? What are your expectations?
The Golden Dome needs to be a layered defense philosophy, not only space-based interceptors, but ground-based as well. We're fortunate that years ago, before the Golden Dome initiative was brought into fruition, that we invested in multiple air defense companies to protect our airspace and allied nation airspaces around the world and our bases around the world. As we're seeing with Iranian drones that are going across the strait or hitting American-flagged vessels, that's a huge concern. And so we need to proliferate not only air defense here domestically, but to national interests abroad.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned space, because we talk about space a lot on this program. I've done many documentaries on space. Most people don't realize why space is such a national security issue. It's where our satellites are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge issue as well. And we think that it's the next warfighting domain. And not only do we have the traditional warfighting domains, but space. You know, President Trump, under his first administration, created the Space Force for a reason, because it's extremely, extremely important. And now we're starting to see budgets to be codified and actual policies and requirements to be written for a new generation of space capabilities that go beyond what SpaceX alone can offer. It is a whole of ecosystem, and there's many venture capital dollars going into this and many brilliant founders who are operating in that space as well.
That is awesome. Larsen, I love what you're doing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We so appreciate you. Larsen Jensen joining us. I hope you'll come back soon.
We'll be back anytime.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're watching Mornings with Maria live on Fox Business.